what you're talking about is hurdles being put in the way for people, and people going around those hurdles, and procurement looking at it and going, these guys are going off script, why is that? And I think that, technology is partly, to blame for that as well. Whereas if you look at the maturity of technology within services procurement, it's nowhere near the level of maturity you've got in contingent workforce. And there's a massive difference between the level of maturity where you're buying goods versus services. But that's because services are really complex. If you're buying goods, it can be catalogued, it can be quite binary. It's very easy to compare suppliers. Obviously there's massive complexity in terms of the way you look at the supply chain, the actual supply chain setup, but the goods and materials you're buying themselves, it's quite easy to know whether you've got what you wanted and what it is you're buying, and measuring it. You can't measure services on weight and volume and size and number of units anywhere near as easily. So it's been something that is just a harder problem to solve. And so the existing technology has done a very good job of solving the overarching procurement process and making the purchase and management of goods procurement, goods and materials, very effective. And equally, you've got specialist technology that manages contingent workforce very effectively, that ties into the bigger procurement systems. I think the same is going to happen with services procurement, but it needs a different view on the world because it's a different setup and you're measuring different things, and there are different parameters in it. So I think that's definitely going to be a little bit of the culprit, as well as the processes that organizations have put in place that maybe are really out of date, or as you say, are driving unintended behaviors. But it feels like those sort of processes have been in place for a long time, most organizations.
Yeah, I completely agree, Johnny. I mean, and you're right in saying, we've been very guilty of almost forcing indirect services and services procurement into tools that have potentially been built for buying goods. And that has impacted the experience for the stakeholder. And I've talked a lot about that today. And one of the reasons for it is because, most reports you pick up that talk about priorities for the CPO in 2021 will have some notion of improving the operational performance, efficiency, cost to serve. But a lot of that is going to be about improving the customer experience. And when we talk about customers, we're talking about our stakeholders who are now, of course, living in a different day and age where the products they use at home, when we talk about consumer grade, they're in a very, very different level to what we're seeing within the corporate world, right? The processes are really clunky. So it goes back to, and you can feel a theme through this conversation, which is about agility. It's about consumer grade. It's about making the experience better for the customer, because actually that's where procurement wants to be seen, right? I think it's probably stretching it to say gone are the days where procurement is only focusing on cost. Cost will still play a big driver in the function and a target from the CFO, but actually it's a number of different elements, and the procurement process is going to play a big part of that, right? And I think going forwards, I think a lot of the goal and the success is going to come from integration on all of the different tools and the ways people buy that you talked about, Johnny. I think it's all about integration. It's getting all those different platforms that are out there that might already be quite established and doing a fantastic job for a specific service line. How do they integrate with something that's coming new into the business? How does a supplier or a technology firm give that to the client very quickly? And how quickly can a client almost absorb that and get that stood up, right? So speed is going to be of the essence here. And you made a really good point earlier on where you were talking about, if corporates don't do this quickly enough, they'll just get left behind.